The following is a presentation of the iRacing Esports Network.
Brits have been racing for a long time. So long, in fact, that in the case of Donington Park, its history extends to before the days of World War II. And while it did experience a long break in its use, it still accrued many decades of the sounds of engines blasting among its hills. So it's very fitting to bring this vintage Lotus Formula One car to the track. But the twisty nature of this circuit will make it a challenge for the old machinery. Will anyone fall afoul of its blind crests and sweeping bends? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch Round 7 of the Lotus 49 Grand Prix Legend Series. And you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Johan Vandenbeld. Behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Amjad Yaman, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Johan, this is one of those circuits I love cropping up on the schedule just for its unpredictability. Tell us a little bit about the track.
You already mentioned it, Joe. Blind crests and sweeping bends. These are Donington's characteristics, and it's how the track can be described since its inception in 1931. Now, at that time, it was the first permanent park circuit in England, but was closed, as you mentioned, a few years later due to the start of World War II. Racing resumed on the circuit in 1977. Now, even though Donington was originally intended for motorcycle races, I feel like it lends itself pretty well for cars too. The circuit, and especially the first half, flows as you dip through the craner curves, climb over coppice. The combination of fast corners and height elevation means that the drivers will struggle more than usual to keep their Lotus 49 pointing in the right direction. But at the same time, overtaking will be hard around here and will be virtually limited to the final two hairpins or when a rival in front makes a mistake. It's going to be a handful to be flawless on this 4.0 kilometer circuit, but to see how the drivers will do it, let's hop on board the GSRC Lotus 49 for a lap around Donington.
Alright, we've got Mick Claridge in the GSRC Lotus 49, so let's do a lap around Donington. Down into Redgate, you'll have one of your best passing opportunities. But this corner has a rather late apex, and you shouldn't be surprised to see drivers carry too much speed and run wide at the exit. Plus, it's tough to get the power down coming off the corner with the way you're immediately arcing into the craner curves. Most cars are easily flat out through here, but in the 49, you're feathering the throttle all the way through until you've got to brake for the old hairpin. In spite of its name, this is something of a swift kink. The tricky entry will mean you probably won't see many passes into there. There's honestly very little of the lap that's full throttle, and Starkey's Bridge is more of the same. Yet again, there's an irritating curved braking zone up to McLean's, but it doesn't get any easier with its blind crest and tightening radius. You've only got a short straight with a steep uphill towards Coppice, where another blind apex greets you. Unlike McLean's though, Coppice opens up on the exit, and without downforce on this old F1 car, you've got to really feel out the grip as you apply the power. Starkey's Straight finally gives you a chance to stretch out the legs of this Ford Cosworth, and you can sometimes see passes into the Fogarty chicane. But a cut course penalty will be easy to get, so I wouldn't advise trying it side by side. This brings us to the add-on created in the 80s. The run down to the Melbourne hairpin offers one more try at an overtake, and there's really not too much special to this turn. Square off the exit and then drift it across for Goddards. There's a small little rise on the entry to this hairpin that can lose you some grip, and spinning the wheels is a bad idea out of here because of it taking you back to the front stretch. But hopefully you've now finished a lap around Donington Park. You see a lap around Donington Park. It should give you an idea of even as someone as fast as Mick struggling to get the power down in places. Now, let's take a look at the championship. Of course, last round had a little bit of problems, but they've still counted it in the points, so many drivers took a drop week. Michel Dudignon is still leading by 15 points over McClarich, and Dave Price hasn't moved either down there with 35 points. Billy Bob Wright stays where he is, though he scores some and jumps him up to 47 behind the leader. And then Gary Teal with a win now, our third winner of the season, jumps up 3 positions up into the top 5. What about the F2 championship, Johan?
Yeah, where Gary Thiel really profited from the Bathurst race, it was in the Formula 2 Championship David Rossi who profited from it. He won last time around and just extended his point deficit to Andrew Eng, who even lost a position to Hideki Corfisto. Andrew Eng had to take a drop week, and behind him Don Good also had a good day in the office. He got a podium position, elevates himself 4 positions, and he slots in just before Robert Reynolds in P5.
And of course, it will affect the Constructors' Championship as well. So as we glance at that, UK still up ahead ever since Mick took his win over in round 5. The United States jumps ahead of France. Michelle didn't have the greatest of races at Bathurst, so still a huge gap because of the number of drivers contributing for the UK that are relatively good, we should say. Finland stays in 4th and Australia stays in 5th. So not a whole lot of changes in the Nations Championship there. What about the race details here today? What are we looking at for the race length?
This race in Donington is round 7 of our 12-round championship. Now you see 2 watermarks behind it. You could maybe already see it in the points a few moments ago, but that means that there's 2 drop weeks this season. In other words, the 2 worst results of each driver will be removed in their championship battle. Donington today, the race will be 24 laps with open setups. That means that the drivers can tweak it just to their liking to really conquer this very twisty and difficult circuit. And the points, they pay out to 25th position. And with 22 drivers here today, finishing means that you get a nice haul of points.
And if you enjoy this type of racing, we have not only the Lotus 49s here on the iRacing Esports Network, but more vintage racing is in store later today in the form of the Camel GT Series. And of course, all the World Championship Series are covered here on IESN. So we highly encourage you to subscribe to this network. You can catch lots and lots of racing action every day. Looking at the qualifying right now, I think you're getting one of your wishes that you were hoping for before we went live here for the race, which is Mick Claridge up at the top of the pole over Michel Dudignon, Johan.
Yeah, but the gap between the two is insanely small, only 0.004 of a second, man. An eye blinker takes longer than that. It's really close between the 2 drivers as they're both going through the chicane now. 2 more hairpins, and then we'll see who will grab pole position. I was saying that because Michel Dudignon in practice seemed to be quite a bit quicker than Mick Claridge, around 0.4 of a second. So with Mick Claridge in front of him, that's going to be a very, very hard challenge for Michel Dudignon to try and find his way past the British driver. In front of him, Mick Claridge gets very loose there out of the final corner, goes over start finish. I think he actually got an off track. Michel Dudignon on the other hand, he improves his lap time. He goes to a 1:24.774, and that means that the French driver currently is on provisional pole.
Oof, well, it was tight for a little while, and Mick Claridge is reversing on the front stretch. I think he's practicing his starts right now. So some interesting tactics going on. Ove Trangrade finds himself in 4th. We know that at times he's been known to spoil the party as well. Driver I'm hoping will improve is Gary Thiel, because he's down in 8th and he's just finishing his 2nd lap right now. He tends to do better than that, and unfortunately his 2nd lap does not count. The number 5 car is going to have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, for sure. He's far down the order. And we mentioned it before, it's really difficult to make overtakes here around Donington. So we'll see how Gary Thiel will fare in the race. A lot of drivers already have finished their lap times. I'm looking at Scott Vallis at the moment. He's currently sitting in P14. He already had both his lap times counted, however. Another driver that hasn't had any laps counted is Matt Wright. He's coming across the last corner now. I don't know if he's actually on a flying lap already, or this is his out lap. Comes over start finish line. No, this was a flying lap. He goes to a 1:27.0. He has enough time to get in his 2nd lap time. Oh, but he gets very loose there in turn 1. And at 1:27.0 puts Matt Wright currently in P12.
Yep, Matt Wright and Robert Robinson are the only 2, I think, who have times to put in with about a minute and a half left to go. In fact, Robbie's still lacking any time on the board. That last one was his warm-up lap. He's got to hustle with 22 cars out there. That's not going to be fun to be trying to trundle around at the back of the entire field. This is Matt Wright that we're watching at the moment. We saw his first time on the board, slot him into the mid-pack, trying to get the power down out of Coppice onto the backstretch. Up towards the Fogarty S's here. This is one of those corners that can get you a cut course penalty. That has been a talking point among the drivers. So as he works his way towards the addition that they added here in more recent history, up towards the Melbourne hairpin, and then down towards Goddard, just a little bit of wheel spin. One more corner to try to get a solid lap time in and to improve on that 27 flat. It's looking pretty decent as he comes to the line. Is this going to be an improvement? It is a 26.8, a couple tenths, and that puts him in 10th place.
And the gap between Matt Wright and Marco Kika is very small, only 0.003 of a second between the two. But that means that Matt Wright will start in the top 10 and Marco Kika just outside of it.
Robbie Robinson crosses the line for his only lap that'll count, a 43.4 for him, well off the pace. So he will indeed start towards the back of the pack, but at least one other driver will be behind him. That will settle our grid out, so let's go through our starting order. On the pole, Michel Dudignon will be P1, and Mick Claridge will be starting next to him in second. No surprises there. Rob Olenek with a good lap to get himself into third, and then row 2 will be completed by Ove Trangerade in fourth. Dave Price starts P5 with Billy Bob Wright starting 6th. That's a pretty common position for both those drivers. Daniel Sadro will start in 7th. Then Gary Teal wasn't able to improve. He'll be P8. Roman Pavlowski starts in 9th with Matt Wright starting in the top 10. Johan?
His driver outside of that is Marco Kika, who starts on the inside of row 6. Behind him it's Bruce Snelson. In the unlucky P13 we can find Philip Urquhart, and he starts just in front of Formula 2 leader David Rossi. Scott Velez, we saw him during qualifying. He starts 15th just in front of Andrew Eng. Row 9 will be shared between Don Good and Francisco Javier Gutierrez in P18. On row 10 we can find Hideko Covisto very far down the field. We're not used to seeing him there. Just in front of Telman Moral. On the last row on the grid is Robert Robinson, and he starts in front of the only driver without a qualifying time, Grant Patullo.
After qualifying finish, cloud cover decided to come in, and that has lowered the track temperature by about 10 degrees, 72 out on the racing surface. That'll make it very grippy. Hopefully drivers have been able to adapt, because we've seen that in the past. That can change the way you want to set up the car. It is only 2 in the afternoon here in the English countryside, and we're getting ready to race for round 7 and the Grand Prix Legend Series. Classic Formula One cars, British Formula One cars on a British track as we wait for the last of the cars to make it to the grid. The engines start to rev now. Michel Dudignon has the pole as the green flag comes out here in round 7. And it is a very good start from Mick Claridge once again. That practice seemed to help him. He's already passed as they come up to the apex of Red Gate. He chops off Michel Dudignon, and he does get to the lead by the first corner.
Everything's smooth, but when Dave Price was very lucky there to not get hit. Oh, Dave Price actually has contact there with Bruce Snelson. I mentioned Dave Price several times because he had a horrible start. He got completely bogged down. He's currently driving outside of the top 10. He really fell far down the order.
Ooh, seeing a shuffle on the qualifying could make for a very interesting race as they come through McLean's for the first time.
Marco Kika there with a really big slide through McLean's. He got immediately passed by Bruce Snelson, but wow, great car control from the Finn to not actually lose it there and lose more positions than he did.
Kika still struggling out of Coppice, and that's put Dave Price on the back of him as they come up to the Fogarty S's, but he's not willing to risk it. You can see a lot of cars pushing the limits through that chicane. And I think we are going to get a slowdown because Matt Wright took a lot of the chop there as now the field hits the Melbourne hairpin.
In front of them, Mick Claridge is going through the final chicane at this moment. He's still leading in front of Michel Dudignon. The gap between him has grown to 0.6 of a second. Let's see if the French driver can now show his qualifying pace again and close the gap down to the Brit in front of him.
They complete lap 1, and Snelson with a big problem.
Gary Teal. Gary Teal as well, hard in the wire. Snelson looping it around there, as you could see in the final chicane, but at the same time it was Gary Thiel who was being put under pressure by Roman Pavlovsky in turn 1. Roman Pavlovsky had a great run out of the final corner. As we go to a replay of that incident here, tried to move on the inside of turn 1 and under braking just hit the rear of Gary Thiel, spun Gary Thiel around, and the Virginian driver hit the barrier quite hard, and that's race over for our race winner last time around in Bathurst.
Looked like Thiel maybe drifted over slightly under braking. Easy to do in these cars. Let's take a look at Price's incident. This is Dave coming around the final corner. Oh, hard contact up and over. Horrible accident for Price, and he's absolutely going to have to take a tow. Watch it one more time from Kika, who's certainly seen a lot of action in the first lap of this race. Front row view. So as we come back live, the lead still belongs to Claridge, but he's been put under immense pressure by the Frenchman Donington, trying everything he can through the final corner, but can't get the launch off. There was a defensive move from the Brit, not down into Redgate though, as he maintains the racing line, and they are already pulling away from Olenek.
Yeah, but if you keep fighting like this, it might be that Olenek can just stay with them longer than he normally would be able to, because the gap between him and the top two isn't that big yet. Over Triangulate behind Olenek is putting some pressure on the podium positions as well. But let's see, Dudion here still very close to McLaren's going through the chicane.
I think if Michel doesn't get by quickly, this is going to be a race-long battle between these two. As they hit Coppice now, trying to get the power down on this long exit. Mick Claridge so far looking pretty smooth about keeping him back. He's been used to this. We've seen this a number of times this season where he's managed to pull this trick off.
He's just really good at starts, and it almost doesn't matter if you don't get pole position. If you can just consistently get the power down at the start and immediately win a few positions, you really can make a difference over a season. You can just see it here in a track where it's notoriously difficult to overtake. Mick Claridge is having that P1 position, and like we've seen countless of times, not only this season but also before, he's not looking like he's going to give it away.
Oh, and we got an incident with the number 13. That's Matt Wright. This is in the Melbourne hairpin. Looks like he outbraked himself. We got the replay here.
And who was lucky? Philip Urquhart, I think, was extremely lucky there, because he was in the middle of the apex and suddenly sees Matt right in front of him. Great avoidance maneuvers from Philip there.
I don't know if it was avoidance so much as sheer luck. Unless he had a rift or 3 screens, I doubt he would have seen him coming. This is Philip's view here. And car.
Wow.
Just a split second of him on screen. I don't think he even had time to react to that happening. So Philip Urquhart now finds himself in 9th position after that. Already on lap 4 as they tick away. And Dudignon's made an error because he's already a 1.5 seconds back. I'm trying to see. Oh, it looks like it was just a wheel spin out of McLean, so not really worth the replay, but it certainly lost him a heap of time.
I think it's a slowdown, to be honest, because it seems like he cut the corner in turn 6 after sliding out of Starkey's bridge, and I think that because of that he's had to slow down and lost him a lot of seconds.
That gives us a chance to glance at the battle for 3rd. This is Olenek and Schrangerade fighting over the scraps behind our leaders. As, wow, Olenek really cuts back in on the late apex of Goddard's. Nove Trangerade has no answer as he runs wide instead out of there. Still stays with him now while they hit Redgate. A whole lot of passing from here all the way until you get to potentially Coppice, so not sure he'll have a chance as we follow them from the chopper.
Maybe an overtake a little bit further down the field. Grand Patulo is on the rear of Hideki Kofisto. This is the battle for P13 at the moment, going through turn 1. Grand Patulo couldn't make that move stick, but behind him, Matt Wright is trying to mingle in that battle. It's a freeway battle now for P13. Very close as well, especially with Matt Wright, one of the quickest cars on track at the moment, behind 2 rivals.
And Grant might be slightly out of position. He did not get a qualifying time in, so he was dead last. For him to be up to 14th really says something. of his pace as he pokes his nose in a little bit coming up to McLean's on Hideki Koivisto, but that doesn't quite work. So they climb the hill to Coppice, see if he can set himself up for the backstretch.
Good run from both drivers there. Gran Patulo seems very smooth on throttle, on exit. Not close enough to try and move here on the inside of the chicane. You kind of have to be brave and follow here and then maybe send it on the inside in Melbourne hairpin. A little bit what Matt Bright tried, but then got very loose. Gran Patulo going through there, but still just a little bit too far. He brakes a little bit later. He sends it on the inside though. Very, very strong on the braking. That means that Hideki Koivisto has to take a wider line through the hairpin, and Matt Bright says thank you very much. And he gets a position as well. So Hideki Koivisto losing 2 positions in 1 hairpin.
Opportunistic stuff from Matt Wright to sneak through there as well. And Hideki Koivisto is left in the dust. Remember, both Wright and Patulo are out of position. Matt because of his mistakes, Patulo because of his qualifying. Oh, and we got a pass for the lead. Michel Dudignon has already gotten past Mick Claridge. And do we have a cut course for Mick this time? He was awful slow on his way up to McLean's.
Yeah, it really seems like that. It almost seems like he cut the corner in Starkey's bridge there. First part, this one.
Yeah, I think you're right. Because he immediately... Oh, that handed it on a silver platter to Michel Dudignon. So can Mick hold out behind him. And we've had Billy Bob Wright with a problem in the Fogarty S's. This was all by himself.
Just braking slightly too late there. Car gets loose as you try to get it to turn in with a lot of speed. Lucky for Billy Bob Wright, he didn't hit the wall, but he loses a lot of time and gets passed by several drivers.
And we've had another pass for the lead. Is this another slowdown penalty?
No, Michel Dudignon got extremely loose out of the last corner. Almost lost control of his car there. He's very lucky he didn't hang it in the wall. You can see it there. But this time it was Mick Claridge getting by. I don't think we've seen the leaders making this many mistakes. Michel Dudignon making another mistake right now as he goes through the old hairpin. This time he doesn't touch the grass, but he loses a lot of time to Mick Claridge. It almost seems like the Brit and French driver are just boiling over from mistakes at this point of the race.
Even for this track, I'd say this is highly unusual. Traingrade now closing in to within half a second of Michel Dudignon and bringing Olenek along with him as we ride on board with Rob. You can see at least Traingrade and Dudignon up ahead of him, maybe a glance of Mick Claridge just up there, and he's actually already coming up on lap traffic. That held him up slightly through the chicane. That was Robbie Robinson trying to let these top 4 through.
Luckily for them now, the next lap driver is around half the track length away from them, so will be a little bit before they can touch another lap car driver. They encounter another one, but these top 4 are very, very close. Michel Dudignon seems a little bit quicker though after his mistake in old hairpin. He cut down the gap to Mick Claridge by a few car lengths, but the French driver really has to focus and make sure that he doesn't make any mistakes, because he keeps losing time and also losing positions by just making small mistakes. It cost him quite a bit of time.
Well, if anybody believes in second chances right now, I'd say it's Mick Claridge. He wasn't able to hold him off before. See if he'll avoid making the same mistake again through the old hairpin. This is where he lost it last time, under Starkey's bridge. That looked a lot cleaner. But already, Michel Dudignon within 0.4 of a second of P1. He takes it deep into McLean's and somehow makes the car stick. He is in a hurry to get this spot back.
Yeah, and I have to say that Mick is cutting it very close as well on the inside there, because he went for sure with 2 wheels over the grass. Both drivers almost, it looks like, taking different driving lines at this point of the race. Going through the chicane now, not close enough to try and move this time around. Behind him over Traingrade is getting a little bit out of pace as well. He's losing a little bit of connection to the French driver, who as Mick Claridge goes very, very slow through the hairpin, then also struggles with getting the power down. Michel Dudignon will now be able to set himself up for a move going into turn 1.
Let's see if he can get the run off the corner. This is what lost him the lead before. He struggled slightly on the power, and I think that's just enough to keep the number 2 car safe. So as they hit red gate, the order still is Claridge leading, Donington second, Trangrade is third, and Olenek is fourth. Then we've got a huge gap back to Roman Pavlowski in fifth, 7 to 8 seconds back to the number 12 machine. So we jump back to the mid-pack. We haven't had a lot of chance to really watch the battles happening down there. This is Rossi leading a train of cars. Philip Urquhart in 9th behind him, Marco Kika 10th, and Scott Velez running in P11.
Especially David Rossi is really impressive for the group. He is the hard charger out of the top 10. He won 6 positions so far since starting the race. And he's under pressure of the 3 cars behind him, but they're not close enough that they actually can try mistakes. David Rossi is dictating the pace of this group at this point. He's just looking very comfortable for another good result in the F2 category.
I've been pretty impressed with the way that Rossi has found his sea legs in this car. He's been steadily making improvements, and we've seen a few drivers do that over time where they find themselves fighting for top 10s, and then suddenly it's for top 5s, and even in some cases podiums. Got a close fight behind Rossi between Urquhart and Kika. Doesn't take a look down into Melbourne, though. Doesn't feel close enough.
It's so cool to see the difference. Marco Kika and Philip Urquhart, you could see that Marco Kika just had a lot more speed in the middle of the corner. Urquhart had the better exit of the two, but this time around he slides quite a bit. Both drivers sliding quite a bit. That might give Scott Velez behind him at P11 an opportunity. He puts the pressure on Marco Kika, but he doesn't have... Oh, he brakes very late. There's Sensen on the inside, side by side, going through turn 1. Scott Velez tries to keep it there, but he doesn't have the momentum on the inside to keep that position and take that P10 position away from Kika.
Impressive defense from Kika to hold it around the outside. And all these slides that we're seeing, I'm wondering if it's due to the fact that it's raised 10 degrees yet again since the start of the race. It is up to 84 degrees out on track. So these drivers dealing with wildly swinging temperatures could be throwing them for a loop. Battle for the lead is back on with Michel Donington now within 0.3 of a second.
Yeah, you were telling about the weather. Maybe Michel Donington was just feeling very, very happy in the sun, because it seems like he just can't keep that extra little bit of pace that McLaren cannot find at this point of the race. He was very close in the chicane. I was actually wondering if the French driver would just send it on the inside there. He waited, however, this time out of the final hairpin. Once again, he has a little wiggle, and that means that he cannot try and move into turn 1. But these two drivers are very, very close, and McLaren is 100% under pressure now once again for the lead.
And all that hard fighting for Philip Urquhart came to naught, unfortunately. He made a move around the outside of David Rossi. We got the replay, but, well, a little bit too eager on the downshifts will cost him. We'll see a puff of smoke here under braking, and then that car has nowhere else to go.
Wow, and also David Rossi just on the inside, very, very lucky to avoid the spinning car of Philip Urquhart, because that could have been very different. Unlucky though for Philip Urquhart. That was a great battle for him.
Absolutely. We're watching the replay one more time here with Rossi. There goes the spinning car off to the side. Let's go back to the leaders, because actually right now Donington has a fantastic run, and he's trying around the outside down into the Melbourne hairpin, squirming under braking. Mick Claridge tries to hold on to the car. He's got the inside line, both of them trying to get back to the power. It switches back in favor of Michel Donington, but he backs out of it, thinking better of it. Still too late on the brakes for Mick Claridge. He misses the apex. Now it's a drag race up to Redgate. It switches back again as the track turns back to the right one more time. Mick Claridge, can he hold him off?
Oh,
they
no!
come together! And
No!
Michel Donington goes off in Redgate. The car spins. He might have damage as Mick Claridge continues on.
Let's go back to that incident in Redgate, because wow, Michel Donington was just so incredibly impressive under braking. But it seems like Mick Claridge just outbraked himself slightly there, bumped into Donington and spun him around.
We're going to watch from onboard Mick's view. Oh, this is reminding me a whole lot of Interlagos from last season.
Yeah, absolutely.
except in this case it wasn't on the straight. It was coming into the corner. Hard contact. We're going to watch it from above. And we'll say the same thing we said last time. These two have a lot of respect for each other, so I don't think this will have ill feelings. Ooh, just wheel-to-wheel contact, and unfortunately that's exactly what you don't want in open-wheel cars.
It's interesting to see what happened though, because McLaren was struggling under braking 3 times in a row. In the Melbourne hairpin he almost lost it, and in Goddard's and Redgate he just outbraked himself. So maybe with the different weather conditions he's just not feeling his car as he was under the cloud cover. And as you could see, obviously he couldn't get it slowed down on time. That led to the contact with Dudion spinning around. Now luckily for Dudion, he can still continue though. His car doesn't seem to be that broken. He's driving around to P4. He's around 5 seconds behind Rob Olenek and quite a bit in front of Roman Pavlowski as well. So he still has a shot on the podium, especially with the pace that Dudion has. This really hurts him. Well, luckily for Dudion, of course, he does have the big championship lead. And he would have liked to win this race here in Donington as well.
Of course, try to beat Mick on home soil would have been a psychological blow for sure. I think maybe, I wonder if Michel's spun coming out of that contact just because of having all the dirt on his tires and trying to get back to the power. Did surprise me to see that he turned the car around after the initial touch. So it looks like he's got it fine now and is trying to gain on Rob Olenek. 13 laps in, we are past halfway. He's got time to try to regain. Let's jump back to the mid-pack though, because we've got a battle happening between Kika and Velez, about half a second between them. David Rossi giving a close watch behind them.
And the viewers will of course remember that David Rossi, as one of the drivers goes very wide, that's Marco Kika, and that will give Scott Velez an opportunity to maybe have a move. David Rossi, of course, was in front of these two drivers, but he had a slowdown last time around and that cost him 2 positions. Scott Velez cannot profit from the mistake from Kika, so he goes for the chicane. He has a way better line though, Scott Velez. He might actually try a move once again in the Melbourne hairpin there, but just braking later, he isn't as strong under braking as the car in front.
I was surprised to see Kika going so defensive into the Fogarty S's. It looked like that's what almost gave it away to Velez there, Johan.
Absolutely, by just too defensive, he didn't get the momentum out of that corner that Scott Velez had. You could see that he immediately had the opportunity to try a move in the old hairpin. And luckily for the Finnish driver, that opportunity was a little bit squandered by Velez braking a lot earlier than Kika that time.
Still close onto the tail of the Finn as they swing it down the Craner curves towards the old hairpin. And you could see the drivers just dancing the car around through these sweeping left and right. Then the fast kink of the old hairpin. Much better speed carried by Marco into it, but not out of it. And that gives another shot for Velez as he closes in up to McLean's. Not often you see passes into here. He's so tight to the gearbox, but just can't find an opening.
Scott Velez is just so consistent, so quick in that infield section. He is currently, with the mistake of David Rossi, the hard charger in the top 10. He also won 6 positions to get where he currently is sitting. It looks like that he is going to add a 7 position to that very, very quickly. He's extremely quick going through the chicane once again. This time around, Marco Kika is not defending. And you can see that the Finnish driver has enough speed to probably defend here going into the hairpin. Scott Velez takes a little look, swerves a little bit to the right. Not close enough to put it side by side.
Still the drivers fighting hard for this P8 position. Up to Goddard's this time, a little bit more calm between the two. We've seen a lot of drivers spin their wheels coming out of here, and both of them are solid. Instead, it's the one behind that's been giving watch, David Rossi, who loses time without traction coming out of the final hairpin. That splits them up temporarily. We're now down to 10 laps to go. Great run out of Redgate there by Velez this time, though.
Yeah, this is probably one of the most important corners in that infield section, that old hairpin, because if you get a good run here, a good amount of momentum, you just launch yourself upwards here through Starkey Brits and through McLean's going to the right here. This time around, Marco Kika seems to be a little bit quicker, although he doesn't have the apex as well. Scott Velez does through McLean's. Going towards Coppis, it seems like the Canadian is just closing the gap once again, but we've seen this the last 2 rounds, the last 2 laps as well, Joe, that Scott Velez can close it down to around 4 or 5 car lengths. and he cannot find his way back here, past him here.
Almost looks like the car is more stable through the fast sweepers for Scott Velez than it is under braking into these sharp hairpins right here. And that's exactly where he needs it, because you're certainly not going to pass through the fast sweepers unless the car ahead of you has a major error.
Now you can see that in the quickest lap times of Scott Velez as well. He's driving around a second per lap slower now than his quickest lap time of the race is. So you can see that Scott Velez does have the pace at in his race car, but he cannot show it because he just cannot find his way past Kika. He's very close though. He takes a look into that gate. Not close enough to put it side by side. Marco Kika got a little bit choked up there in the middle of the corner. It didn't give Scott Velez the opportunity to put it side by side.
While all this is happening, we don't need to go to it. Michel Dudignon has been steadily closing on Rob Olenek, but not on the leader. He's still nearly 8 seconds back from Mick Claridge. There, we watched Hideki Koivisto go.
I would say car that was driving very slow was Don Good. He had a little spin coming out of the chicane last time around. He didn't hit any barriers or something, but he has lost a lot of time in a few positions.
Snelson, who himself is out of position, still trying to climb upwards. He's behind Hideki Koivisto, but boy, we talked about the difficulty in passing, and it seems a number of drivers are ruining their mistakes and trying to get past slower cars. So as Snelson continues behind the Finn up to the Fogarty S's, no chance for a pass this time.
Hideki Koivisto is really getting everything he can out of the race. I think he's one of the drivers that didn't make a lot of mistakes during the race. And that's really reflected in the position that he's currently in. He's 7 positions up his qualifying time. And as it stands, the much quicker in qualifying Bruce Snelson cannot find a way past.
Had a few DNFs out here today. Attrition is rearing its ugly head. Dave Price, Robbie Robinson, Philip Urquhart, Grant Patillo had a disconnect, unfortunately, and Don Good is the latest victim. So out of only a 22 car field, I believe we have 16 left. This is Rob Olenek in third. He's now got a mirror full of Michel Dudignon. With 8 laps to go, does he dare try to keep him back? Does he just let the Frenchman through when he gets a run?
I don't know if you have a podium position in your hands with only 8 laps to go, and especially on a track where it's hard to overtake. You want to keep that position, but he had a poor run out of the last corner, Rob Olenek there. Michel Dudignon had a much better run. He takes a little look on the inside. This time around he cannot get by, but Rob Olenek gets scared. He makes a mistake there, and he gets by side by side through the Craner curves. They are still side by side. On the outside, Rob Olenek seems to have a little bit more momentum. He stays in front, going towards the old hairpin. But now Michel Dudignon has the inside. He has to brake a little bit earlier. Rob Olenek, more momentum around the outside. And you can see there, a little wicker for Michel Dudignon. Great driving side by side there. The Frenchman couldn't find a way past. But he immediately takes a look on the inside, though, at the exit of Starkey's Bridge through McLean's. Michel Dudignon once again gets very loose. And now he has to give up the side-by-side battle. He is then to try it another time when to go to the chicane and the hairpins.
There is your answer. Olenek is not going to give this one up easily. And I can tell you from experience, racing side by side that whole way through is not easy. I am amazed that both of them held out there as they come through the Fogarty S's one more time. Olenek is putting up a wall and saying, you're going to have to climb over this. And here comes Michel Dudignon with a ladder. Oh, as he almost gets to the inside through the Melbourne hairpin. Here we go again, side by side, down to Goddard's. He's on the outside of the corner. Let's see if he can gun it off the late apex here. Maybe an over-under. Rob Olenek himself finds the traction off the corner down the front stretch. This is where it started last time. He's much closer though. Michel Dudignon looking to the inside. Olenek does not cover him off, which is exactly what he did last time, and it set us up exactly for this very thing before. Side by side from the Craner curves, but this time the Frenchman learned his lesson and he's able to find the traction through there.
Yeah, Rob Olenek tried to rely on the momentum on the outside this time around as well, but it wasn't meant to be. Michel Dudignon just had a little bit more track position And that was all he needed to get back to a podium position. Now, as it stands, how far behind? He's around 6 seconds behind over Trangerade. Michel de Jong really has to step on the power now to try and close the gap to get to P2.
Well, I don't know. We couldn't go back to the mid-pack because we had lots of action back there, too. We have a replay of Scott Velez making a pass. Oh, no, he had a spin, excuse me. There was 2 other cars that also had a pass. Oh, it was an attempted pass by the Canadian, it looks like. Into the corner and around the corner.
It's a little bit what we saw Billy Bob Wright do as well early in the race. He just stirred in maybe with a little bit too much speed, maybe a different racing line than he was used to. The car just slid away from under him.
And then this is the replay of Snelson finally getting past Koivisto. We said it's rare that you see passes into McLean's. Well, that one was a rare one, so bookmark that. The Northwest driver now finds himself up to P12.
P5 battle going on the way. Billy Bob Wright trying a move on Daniel Cedro in the last corner. Big dive from Billy Bob there to get him get by. So it's a P6 battle. He actually makes it stick. Daniel Cedro tried to hold it around the outside, but he has to give in before they get to that.
And Sadro, another one of those drivers that I mentioned who has continued to find himself some pace in this car. Billy Bob Wright cannot be held back though. Back up into P6 for him with that move. Sadro hasn't dropped off yet, and that's our closest battle for the moment. Dudignan's got a ways to go to get up to Trangerade in a P2, and I'm not sure with 5 laps left if that battle will actually happen.
In the meantime, Mick Claridge all the way up front is uncontested for that at the moment. He's 5 seconds in front of over Trangerade, and he's been extremely consistent the last time around. Consistent 125, so it's just in front of him. Andrew Eng is going off. I saw smoke. Was it a blown engine? No, it was just outbraking himself. So Andrew Eng can continue though. He's currently driving a P14. But as I was saying, Mick Claridge is really consistent and he's dominating from up front, controlling the race, just managing his gap towards the Norwegian behind him.
Well, and the other important thing about this, if he can take home this win, is Michel just at the fastest lap behind them, is that this will be the first time this season that Claridge will beat Michel on track. Michel didn't show up the last time Mick won at Barber, so this will be very important for the Brit, especially at a home circuit.
I don't want to talk about psychological games or something, but Michel de Jong, if he doesn't win here, he hasn't won for the last 3 races, while he did win the first 4 races of the season. So he's really going through a dry spell at the moment. He just cannot get the wins as easily as he was earlier this season.
Well, Mick Claridge has to find every edge possible if he wants to take the fight to the Frenchman. As we watch Billy Bob Wright just ahead of Daniel Sadro, starting to pull away slightly. And did Andrew Eng have yet another off?
Yeah, he was being challenged by Gary Thiel, who's out on track though. Just in front. Now, I was almost thinking like Gary Thiel had something to do with that, but no, Andrew Eng did it all on his own. This was going through Coppis last time around. Just had a wiggle in the middle of the corner. Again, lost a lot of time, but he's back on track with no damage.
Didn't hit a wall or anything.
Once again, he's very almost outbreak himself going through the grass there. That was in Melbourne's hairpin. I think Andrew Eng is struggling with a car that's a handful at this moment. He's outbreaking himself and is very slidey in a lot of corners.
The temperature hasn't gone up. It's actually gone down slightly. It's 79 degrees out there now. So wonder if he got a little bit of damage from something, and maybe that's what's hurting the car. So we're down to 3 to go now. Mick Claridge, 2.5 really, still working his way around the track with a whole 6.7 seconds over second place Ove Trangerade. The number 9 car qualified this thing in 4th and is looking to be on the second step if he can just hold on ahead of Michel Dudignan, who is closing rapidly, I should say. It's 3.7 back to the number 1 car. Had his very share of mistakes, although Marco Kika back in the pack is off course, and this is in Redgate.
Yeah, there's too much speed sliding in the tank slapper in the middle of the corner. Now that loses him quite a few positions because he was driving around the P8. David Rossi and Matt Wright got by him, however. There's Marco Kika back to P10.
This is a lot of mistakes in this car that we're seeing. I have got to ask the drivers once we get to interviews if this was due to weather, because I'm flummoxed as to why we're seeing so many spins out there.
Yeah, and normally we see or especially the spins that we're seeing are mid-corner spins. In the middle of the corner, suddenly there's lack of grip, so it's almost like drivers are taking too much speed or something, and that could be because of weather. That suddenly there's less grip that you were used to in practice, and that's just really ruining your grip and making you spin around.
Battles are starting to separate. Sadro has fallen back from Billy Bob Wright, and we're watching our leader. We were watching our leader, Mick Claridge. This is now David Rossi and Matt Wright in the mid-pack. This is for 8th position that they're fighting. They're a whole 24 seconds behind Daniel Sadro up there in 7th. So this is the highest these two are likely to go in this race. At this point, they are free to battle. Through the crane of curves towards the old hairpin. That's Matt Wright that you see behind in this pair of two. That's David Rossi that we're riding on board with now in the tan machine.
I think that David Rossi is just very happy with this result once again, because if he finishes where as it stands at this moment, he will win again in the Formula 2 category, just extending his championship lead even more to Deke Kofisto and Andrew Eng behind him, as he's going very slightly there through Koppis. But with a P8 overall, that's again a nice haul of points for Rossi in the Lotus 49 machine.
White flag has come out for our leader. We can stay on this battle because he's all by himself still, is Mick. So let's see if he's got anything for Rossi. Matt Wright made a mistake earlier on in this race, and he's following right in the tire tracks of that number 16, trying to put as much psychological pressure as he can on the driver ahead. They now get the white flag with 1 to go. Opportunities starting to dwindle for Matt Wright to try and make an overtake. I think he might have to hope for a mistake to try and slip through. But we've got to go to Mick Claridge, because 1 more hairpin to go. And a 7.5 second gap back to 2nd place has got to make him feel good about this one. Had to get a little bit rough to take the win, but in the end, Mick Claridge in round 7 of the Grand Prix Legend Series is going to take the win. Uwe Trangrade follows him home for 2nd, just barely 2.5 seconds ahead of Michel Dudignon, who winds up 3rd today.
Well, the top 3 has finished. Let's go back to the battle between David Rossi and Matt Wright. They're going through Koppis now, so that means 1 chicane, 2 hairpins, and their race is over as well. The gap has increased slightly, around 1 car length at this point of the race. They're going through the chicane now. Matt Wright very, very tidy there, but a little bit loose on exit. That hurts him, maybe an opportunity to try and move here. Takes a look on the inside. David Rossi goes defensive. Matt Wright goes back to the racing line. Different racing lines here through the first of the 2 hairpins. Good access, both of them, but Matt Wright gets a little wiggle. Again, he takes a look on the inside. He has to try an extreme dive bomb there to get by. He gets cut off before the apex of the corner. David Rossi on the outside needs to get good momentum. He wiggles a little bit, but it's enough for David Rossi to finish the race here at Donington in P8.
And it's even closer behind them. Marco Kika leading a train of Scott Velez and Bruce Nelson. All 3 of them had chances to change those, but none of them did. There's a lot of great battles there in the mid-pack as drivers were getting desperate at the end. Koivisto there you see finishing last on the lead lap in 13th. That's going to take us to break here, but we've got more in our show, including the official results as well as driver interviews coming up after this break, where you'll see all the upcoming races here on the GSRC. Welcome back to Donington Park. We just watched round 7 of the Grand Prix Legends series here on the iRacing Esports Network and the Global Sim Racing channel. And Mick Claridge gets his second win of the season. This time, the first one with Michel Dudignon out on track with him. But it was Ove Trangrade who came home in second place as both Mick and Michel came to blows. Michel winds up in third, but judging by the ribbing that they're giving each other in the post-race chat, I think there's no hard feelings between them. Rob Olenek winds up in fourth after a fierce battle with Michel on his way back through. Roman Pawlowski takes fifth, having started from ninth. What a climb. Billy Bob Wright winds up in P6. He had to overtake Daniel Sadro, who finishes seventh behind him. David Rossi, late race battle between himself and Matt Wright. They finish 8th and 9th respectively. And then Marco Kika rounds out your top 10.
Yeah, but Marco Kika didn't get a top 10 position easily because he was followed very closely by Scott Velez and Bruce Nelson, who finished in P11, P12. Another hard charger today here in Donington, Hideki Kofisto, finishing P13, winning 6 positions in the progress. And a few drivers that finished one lap down, Francisco Javier Gutierrez, Andrew Eng and Telmo Almiral. And then we have a few drivers that didn't finish the race. Graham Petullo 7 laps down. Don Good classified in P18. Gary T, who actually went out back on track at the end of the race, still classified in P19. And then we see Philippe Urquhart, Robert Robinson and Dave Price, who retired early in the race.
So this was a good one. We're just waiting for the drivers to make their way up the stairs to the booth for post-race interviews. I know Mick has expressed that he wants to come and talk to us about some of that battle. And I cannot wait to hear some perspectives out there. We wondered if it was going to be very difficult to pass, and indeed it was, but lots of passing still happened. The race saw a lot of swings in the temperature out on track, and it looks like Mick has now managed to make his way up the stairs, so let's bring him in the booth. Mick, we were watching for pretty much the whole race between you and Michel, or at least half the race, I guess, since it didn't go all the way to the end. But it seems like there's no hard feelings. You two ribbing each other there in the post-race chat.
No, we never have any feelings like that. We've been racing like this for years and years and years. Well, not like that, but yeah, we've been racing a long time now. So yeah, and I think we're just a bit ring rusty, fighting him because I've been away from him for so long now. He's been so fast,
Absolutely, but this was on your home circuit here at Donington, and your first time beating him on track here during the season. The only other time that you beat him, he didn't show up. So what does this do for you mentally?
It's like I said to you before, I should be pretty good on these slow Mickey Mouse tracks, that are coming up. It's always the big tracks I struggle on. So I was expecting to be pretty, good here today anyway. Michel knew as well. He was saying, "Oh, you missed your second lap in qualifying." I did. I would have been on the same sort of pace as him today. He was really struggling this morning in practice, and then he sorted it out. So he did really well to get on pace for the afternoon. It would have been a close battle,
Certainly seemed like it was close for about half the race. Now, Johan seems to have gotten wise to your tricks. He called it before the race that you tend to get good starts, and that was what happened here. How long do you think until Michel starts to get wise to your tricks off the line?
Do you know what? To be honest with you, I just got an average start. Michel really messed it up. I watched him out of the pits, before the race, because I always do a sneaky little look at other people's first gears, and my first gear was terrible. It was really low, but I just wanted a decent second gear off the hairpins, so my first gear was not as good as I wanted it to be, but his start was horrible. It was really bad. He really bogged out. He missed the lights.
Well, that is something that we completely missed. We'll have to go back and watch the replay on that one. It certainly gave us some good action there in the race to watch. We were kind of hoping that you two would be fighting. So one last question before we let you go. Were the temperatures difficult to deal with? Because we saw a lot of errors from drivers all throughout the field, and we saw 10-degree swings in Fahrenheit throughout the race.
God, did you see me come off the track? I just understeered straight off the track. It was I had trouble with my pedals a couple of times. I've just cleaned them and they kept spiking. Like the accelerator was spiking. I was at like half throttle going around one of the corners where I should have been on the brake. I just understeered straight off. But yeah, no, the track temperature weren't too bad. I mean, everyone's been practicing the same. They've sort of kept the tracks at around 80 degrees all week, you know, and then if the clouds come over, then it goes down, dips down into the 70s. But yeah, no, I noticed that as well. A lot of guys were having trouble, but I don't know. Maybe it's just a lot of people who haven't practiced under the clouds, you know, because it does make a difference, especially if you've got a low power ramp, you know, trying to get off these slow corners.
Well, it makes things fascinating here at Donington Park, and thanks for coming and talking to us. Congratulations on your second win.
Yeah, cheers, Joe. And that was his fault.
Mick Claridge having to get the last word in here, our winner today. And Johann's talking to fourth place finisher Rob Olenek.
Yeah, because Mick Claridge wasn't the only one who fought a lot with Michel Dudillon. Rob Olenek as well. Rob, welcome to the booth. You had a great battle with Michel Dudillon. How was it from your perspective?
See if we can get Rob mic'd up here. Waiting for him to get the clip on his lapel. Rob, do you have a copy? No, we might not get to talk to Rob here. That was an impressive run through the Craner curves and around the old hairpin, Johann, that I said it during the race that I could not believe that they managed to stay side by side that long around this track.
Absolutely. That's why I want to ask for Rob how it was, because to go side by side in these Lotus 49s for half the track, and especially in the infield section, that's just incredibly difficult. And also to do that with the pressure during the race and for a podium position, that's really top stuff.
Rob, we'll give him one last try. Do you have a copy, sir? He must have left to get a snack. So let's close things up here. We'll talk to him next week, hopefully. But we want to thank, of course, the Lotus 49 community for bringing us back for another season of coverage. And also, we want to thank iRacing for bringing this series onto the iRacing Esports Network. They've gotten some wild races so far this season. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast. As always, you can see them listed on your screen. Additional thanks go to Eric Ekholm and June Lalonde, who provide our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of their great work. Thanks to the team today, Johann, Amjad, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can also check us out on social media. We're on Twitter at GSR Channel, on Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram on GSRC_Graham. Don't forget, head on over to our YouTube page. We've got a big red subscribe button there as well. If you click that, you won't miss a moment here on the Global Sim Racing channel. The next race, we're heading back to the States. We're going to Road Atlanta. That'll be Saturday, February 2nd at 8:30 a.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.